Hello. Many friends have been asking me over the last week or two about what is happening to the farmers' movement, the farmers' protest, the new government bills concerning the welfare of farmers. Well, sitting in this farm, I thought is the right place to address this issue. There are three bills which were introduced by this government in Parliament in September, and they have been passed both in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, and they have also received the assent from the President of India. So all three bills are now laws of this land. Interestingly, this government introduced these three bills in June itself, in the midst of the corona crisis, in the form of ordinance. Ordinances are usually promulgated when the government needs to enact something urgently, when there is an emergency and the parliament cannot be called into session. What was the emergency at that time regarding the field of agriculture? What was the emergency regarding the welfare of farmers? Has not been made very clear by the government or its spokespersons. Before we get into the content of those bills, what they actually mean in simple terms, and why the farmers are dead against it, let us begin with 2 points which concern me, which I want to share with you. The first is the process in which such changes should happen in our society. Here we are talking about laws which are going to affect 70% of India's population. So it's a very good example to take when we in the sense the government who represent us, when they make such huge decisions, what should be the process in a good society, in a democracy, or should I say in a civilized Hindu society? What should be the ways and means of bringing about change? Change for the better, of course. And has that process been followed in this case? Even in Parliament, where there are representatives from different states, all the states of this country, and there are representatives of different political parties, and they also have this place, Parliament, to give them a voice. And what happened in Parliament, the way the government rammed through these bills in just 2 days, is very, very unfortunate. It was very ugly scene in the Rajya Sabha when they did not even take a vote as demanded by some members of Parliament. I know when it is a time-honored tradition in Parliament that even if one member asks for a vote, for example, this happened even in the height of emergency, that most cruel time, in 1975. Even at that time, when one member got up to ask for a vote and that I wanted division, it should be counted, and the chairman had agreed. And even that did not happen. Just 2 days of discussion in Parliament to ram through a bill affecting 70% of India's population. That was quite ugly. That was the first sour note about the process, the way it was pushed through. The second point of concern, of course, is what was the thought process in the government before these bills were written? Before writing the bills, surely the government would have consulted somebody. Who were consulted? It is very strange that the farmers, various farmers organizations who have got together and are now protesting outside Delhi, the government is saying, okay, now, yes, we are willing to talk with you. And I read yesterday that the government says, okay, we are also acceding to this demand. We will modify the bill. We have acceded to this demand. We will modify this portion of the bill. Excuse me, should this activity not have been done before the bills were brought into Parliament? Isn't it amazing that lakhs of farmers are on the streets saying, we don't want this. The government says this is our gift, take it. They're forcing a gift on people who don't want the gift. Surely there is something very fundamentally wrong in the process itself, where all the consultations, the talks that the government is offering the protesting farmers today, that should have been done before the bill was brought into Parliament, isn't it? Who are the bureaucrats who actually drafted this, And most of our bureaucrats, you may call them experts, but there are really people, from my experience, I can say, who have very little touch with the ground realities of this country, especially with anything to do outside the urban metropolitan landscape. So they sit in cities and do their agricultural degrees. They work in the corridors of power in Delhi and dream that they can change, the agricultural economics of this country from air-conditioned cabins. This has been a serious point of concern, not just for in this case with the farmers movement, but this has been a serious point of concern for a lot of us who have been talking about this complete disconnection between our educated intellectuals, and the real people in the real world, who are affected by decisions made by them. So this process is quite important, and one wonders if the government somewhere did not exhibit wisdom, did not exhibit sensitivity, and did not exhibit, what I would call uh, a good refined Hindu behavior, and instead brought something to forcibly thrust it down, people's throats. The third point of concern is that more and more our country is becoming centrally governed. The center is becoming stronger and stronger, and the states and the districts, they're all getting weaker and weaker. Now, is that a good thing? Should we not dream about a more federal society, a more federal and cooperative structure where consultations, talks, dialogues happen with the people on the ground for whom laws are enacted? For example, in this particular instance, agriculture, according to our constitution, is a completely state subject. Each state, given its diversity in the type of ecosystem it has, in the types of crops that it needs to grow, and which its weather patterns allow it to grow, every state has been allowed right since 1947 to have their own say in the way agriculture is handled. Why suddenly has our government enacted a bill at the center which is being forced down the throats of all the states? Federalism, or a federal structure, is just becoming a structure in tatters. It's completely broken down. This is not to say that the present government has started this. Let's face it, right from the time of our first Prime Minister and then onwards to Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and then now to Mr. Narendra Modi, all of them seem to want more and more powers when they become Prime Minister, almost dictatorial in nature. This is another point in the process which is has to be questioned, I think, and one need not take political sides in this. I keep mentioning the Hindu way in this video, particularly because I feel that if at all we have to revive, there is a lot of talk of Hindu and Hindutva in this country, but if at all we have to revive the Hindu way, or the way of the Ram Rajya, then surely this is one example we should learn from and never repeat again. About the contents of the actual bills, we'll discuss in the next video.